I'm deeply honored to be speaking with you guys today, especially on the subject of education, because it really means a lot to me. So when David asked me to speak on this topic, I was completely thrilled. As most of you know, I'm a rather upbeat and naturally positive person, and I like to focus on what is right and not what is wrong. But when it comes to our education and our school systems today, I believe that this is an area where we are failing. And I can speak to that from having gone through it myself, all the way up through university and multiple degrees and all that stuff, and now being an educator and a teacher myself. I can see it because I've lived it, and I can speak to it because I've experienced it and I know it. So when I first graduated from college, I taught at a public school my first year, and it honestly broke my heart. I was in trouble all the time, which as an adult teacher, to be called to the principal's office pretty much daily, not daily, definitely weekly, can be a little embarrassing. But I was always in trouble for the way I was teaching my students. I actually had my principal tell me one time that I was teaching my students too much individuality. Can you imagine that? I was teaching my students too much individuality. Because the way our school system is set up today, it's this idea of like, this is it, this is what you're creating, and we're going to put you all on a scale to see who's the best and who's lacking, and decide for you what you have to create and what it's going to look like. And it's so limiting and it's so controlling. And I knew then, and I know today, that we are all unique individuals, and that uniqueness will create something different for each of us. And it's never going to look the same, and we can't keep trying to control what it's going to look like. Because schools today, in my experience, they have the potential to kill creativity and to kill the individual child. And honestly, they can be intellectually abusive. But that's not what it needs to be like. As we all know, we are all so different. We have different strengths, different needs, different goals, different dreams. And yet we're taught the same way and the same thing all the time. We're creating this cookie cutter clone version of our world, and that's not what it's meant to be like. We're meant to bring our unique self forth. We're meant to express from our hearts and not just our minds. And when we do this, when we create this mold and this image that we force people to fit into, we cut off parts of them that are so beautiful and so unique and so true to them. And we can't teach education to replace individual thinking. We can't stop education from allowing us to be who we really are. Because in this process of forcing us to be something we're not, there's so many children and there's so many adults that are left feeling like they don't belong and they don't fit and they're stupid and they're useless and they have nothing to offer this world. And it's not real and it's not true. Everywhere in our world, we're evolving, we're creating, and we're changing. Look at technology, televisions, computers, cell phones, cars, buildings, structures. It's all changing and it's all evolving as time changes. But our school systems, they really haven't. For over 150 years, our schools have been the same. For more than a century, our schools have been the same. And that's because here in America, when our schools were really created like this, it was during factory times. When we needed that, we needed people to sit in a straight row and raise their hand and dress the same and think the same and act the same and be the same, because that's what we needed then. But that's not what we need now. We need something different. We need children who can speak to their own truth, who can be creative and expressive and an individual self. Innovative. And within all of that, still understand that we are a part of a whole, picture so that we can support each other and create together and come together as one, but this beautiful, unique piece within the one. And that's what we need to focus on the individual, on the gift, on the dreams that we all have to bring forth. Because children with dreams become adults with vision. We teach competition in our schools instead of collaboration. We teach scarcity, that we have to fight and we have to compete to have everything that we need. And it's not real. We all know that we live in an abundant universe, a world that will allow every person to have the food and the shelter and the love and the joy and the care that they need. But we teach our children to only think for themselves and to only think about themselves, to only think about themselves. And I'm not surprised that our planet is struggling with separation and poverty and war, because that's what we teach our children, and our children become adults. But I'm done with that. Because real education, real and true education, is the antidote, is the answer, is the solution to all of these problems. Teaching the whole child, as Tom was saying, not just focusing on the intellect, the ability to memorize and retain and repeat information, but the whole child, the emotional realm, the physical, the spiritual, all of these pieces of ourselves, the social, developing all of that in the child. That's what our education system should, and I'm saying should do. Develop the whole person within each child, within each adult, within each of us. How cool would it be if schools focused on character building? If they taught us perseverance, motivation, self-esteem, self-control, conscientiousness, and forward-thinking behavior. Could you imagine if you learned that as a child? Most of us are still trying to learn that as an adult. If we would have already had that information, what we could carry forth into our world today. And that's what I want to bring as a teacher. That's what I want to teach to my students. When we label children as gifted or talented, we focus on the intellect. But there's so much more. I always tell my students that quote from Albert Einstein. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And that's what we do when we only focus on one part of a person, when they have these other parts that they can shine from. So that's what I say. I say, let's give every gift an equal chance. Let's give every child an equal chance. Let's give every person an equal chance. Every morning when I wake up, I set an intention for myself. And most mornings, I set the intention to return to innocence, the innocence of a child, so I can see the world the way that it really is. I can see the world with wonder and excitement and possibility, with curiosity and acceptance. Because that's what that's the way we are meant to see the world, because that's the way the world is. And it's a beautiful place to be. Children are so curious and filled with so much wonder. They're always asking why. I have one child that, almost to the point of annoyance, asks why. But as adults, it's our job to resist the urge to tell them the answer that we believe is correct. But what we need to be doing is teaching children to find the answers for themselves. Teaching them to discover and understand the way that they think and the way that they feel in this world. And to find their own unique perspective so that they can find their own unique gifts. And they can bring that into our world. Annalise was talking about teaching from the outside in versus the inside out. which is a lot of what I'm talking about. And, children, we teach them all these things and we tell them to believe what we've decided is accurate and correct. And in that process, it stops them from believing in what they know and what they're feeling and what they're experiencing for themselves. And that's what we have to get back to, allowing them to be right and them to be, their truth to matter and to be heard. And as adults, I feel like we're more confused than ever of who we are, because that's all we've ever known. We've been told who we are. And we've stopped listening, and we've stopped believing, and we've stopped trusting ourselves. And we've gotten so far from knowing the truth of who we are. It's no wonder we don't understand each other, and we don't understand our world if we don't understand ourselves. So I love the idea, which is what David had sent a piece about, and what we're trying to do with the emissaries here is creating an educational platform that does all of this, that allows the individual to be an individual, that allows you to love and know yourself, to develop yourself in a whole, complete way, all aspects of yourself. And in all of this, we're going to have the opportunity to connect and understand and be true to who we are, and to connect with Source, God, Great Spirit, and to our world. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. But we need true and real education, because without it, our society and our world will not change. Students and children may be a small percent of the population, but they're 100% of our future.